Vicente Luque is a stylistic matchup. It's fascinating. We'll get stuck into that in a moment or two, but you can see live pictures now coming to you from Houston, Texas. Don't forget, this all going down on BT Sport from the Toyota Centre in the early hours of Sunday morning. 1 o'clock prelims, 3 o'clock main event. But I can see that the athletes are about to hit the scales. So let's get over there.
Making her UFC debut here tomorrow.
And you can hear the dulcet tones there of John Anik welcoming in the guys and girls. Melissa Gatto, I think he just said there, who's making a UFC debut in the flyweight division, taking on Victoria Leonardo. So here we go. Thank you very much for joining us. Wherever you are joining us around the world, whether it's on the YouTube stream, whether it's on the BT Sport app, but we will call in the guys and girls as they are weighing in over in Houston, Texas for UFC 265.
Gatto finally getting to weigh in. She signed for the UFC in 2019 and pulled out of 3 fights consecutively. This is the 4th time she's been matched up. Finally makes the scales.
There you go.
Good for her.
And on weight as well. First out the door this morning, straight into the breakfast bar. Well done to her as well.
First time she's fought since 2018, actually.
One half of our co-main event, one of the best bantamweights in the world, ranked 9th at present, the young Punisher, Pedro Munhoz.
Fight that we were speaking about a moment or two ago. This has obviously been boosted to the co-main event off the back of the bantamweight title fight sadly falling off. But here's Pedro Munhoz getting his opportunity against Jose Aldo. Here's a stat for you, Mike, on this fella. Most leg kicks landed in UFC bantamweight history, Pedro Munhoz. And we know that Jose Aldo likes to have a bit of a kick, so we could just have you go, I go type of fight tomorrow night.
Adam Catterall, the stats hero. My word, look at you. You're on fire today. You got your BT Sport team giving you notes. This is all straight off the top of the dome, Adam, okay? You know what, to be honest, you're absolutely right.
Pedro Munhoz.
But you never know with Jose Aldo, though. He was known for the leg kicks back in the day. Remember, I mean, when he came from WEC, I don't know if you recall what he did.
We will stay in the bantamweight division as we welcome Johnny Munhoz.
That was a punishing display, but he kind of abandoned them a little bit. But make no mistake, he's still got them in his back pocket.
Absolutely. No relation, by the way, these two, Johnny Munhoz, Pedro Munhoz. First fight of the night. On the early prelims, taking on Jamie Simmons at bantamweight.
Both these guys, Munhoz and Simmons, made their UFC debuts and lost, but they both took the fight at late notice. Munhoz took his at 48 hours notice, and he's promising to show us the real Pedro Munhoz in this fight. He was 10-0 before losing that, incidentally.
135.5, the official weight for Johnny Munhoz.
Yeah, that's the thing. Certainly with COVID, there's been a lot of, as we know, fights dropping out. So the UFC have had to call on people to jump in last minute, and you do that and you take a chance.
Next fighter to the scale back for the first time in a long time in the UFC strawweight division, Karolina Kowalkiewicz.
You want to be with the UFC, so you take it at short notice. You know what I mean? If it doesn't go well, it's unfortunate, but now he's got a full camp. I am excited. But anyway, talking of contenders, here she is.
Well, that's the question that I've got for you, Mike. Is she a contender? Obviously, lost 4 on the spin. We haven't seen her since February 2020. She's kicking off the prelims. Big night this for Karolina.
Yeah, when I said contender, I was talking about past status, if you will, because as we know, she was up there. But you're right. The unfortunate thing is
weight for Karolina Kowalkiewicz.
In all sports, it's hard to stay up at the top. It really is. She's been around a little bit. She's had some great fights. She's been involved in some massive events. But, this is a good fight for her. And it's an important one because it's going to tell everybody where she's at. Has she still got it? Or is she on the decline and on the way out? And as I say,
competing live on pay-per-view tomorrow night, Tecia Torres.
That's just the way it goes sometimes in the fight game or any kind of sports, to be fair. And there's another young lady that, again, I'm not going to say she's in a similar position, but kind of in a similar position.
Yeah, very much so, Nick, isn't it? I mean, even this fight for Tecia Torres and Angela Hill, regarding the division, it's very difficult to figure out what this actually means for the... Yeah. Because these girls have both competed against the very, very best in the division and come up short on several occasions.
Yeah, well, they fought each other back in 2015. Torres won that night. This is a rematch, 6 years in the making. This was actually scheduled for December.
15 pounds for 10th ranked Tecia
Well, Angela Hill contracted COVID in December, so the fight got pushed back. So they've had to wait a good 6 months to finally get this rematch on. But you're right, the winner moves forward in the division, and the loser, unfortunately, takes another step backwards.
Song Yadong.
Mike, these guys here, Song Yudong taking on Kenney. It's a fight that a lot of fans are obviously excited about. Two young guys coming through, hot prospects, but they're both coming off the back of losses. And this division, because of how hotly contested it is, you could put a run together of 4 or 5 fights, lose one, and then you're out the top 15. This is a big night for both of these guys on Saturday.
Yeah, no, it really is. But, you said they're both coming off losses.
135.5 pounds for Song Yudong.
Song lost to Kyler Phillips, whereas Casey just lost by a split decision to Dominic Cruz. And no disrespect, there's a big jump up in competition there. There's a big disparity. For Casey Kenney, he's got tremendous judo. He was on the national judo team for a long time. So if he's smart, he's going to use that. He's going to push him up against the fence.
Ode Osborne.
I'm going to have a word with John Anik. When I'm on the roll talking about Song Yudong and Casey Kenney, John Anik cannot be interrupting me like this. I'm going to send him a text. They had a phone.
This is going to be interesting. This is Osborne making flyweight for the first time in his life. He's previously fought at bantamweight. His last fight was at featherweight, and now he's moving down to flyweight. First time in his career.
Yeah, that's why I've said I'm impressed with him, because I thought that we might be waiting for this chat. Well, fair play to him that he's out in the first 5-6 minutes. Making weight, taking on Manel Kape, which tops the early prelims. Manel Kape, former rising champ, of course.
125, the official weight for Ode Osborne.
Good lad.
Well done, lad. Well done.
He beat Rivera in his last fight at 145. He's dropped 20 pounds, even though we won at 145 as well. Interesting.
All right, next fighter to the scale in the bantamweight division, Anderson dos Santos.
To be that light and to drop 20 pounds is a massive percent of your body weight. I'm not a big fan of that, to be honest, but you got to do what you want to do. You got to find your optimal weight class, and maybe this is it. Maybe flyweight is where he's meant to be.
I've no doubt we'll be speaking about people in those lower weight categories moving down in weight when we speak Cody Garbrandt a little later on. We've had a few questions from people joining us on social media about that.
135.5, the official weight for Anderson dos Santos.
Well done, Anderson dos Santos, taking on Miles Johns. We'll speak about his fight a little bit later on. But if you do have any questions for Mike, Nick, and the team here, you're more than welcome to interact with us.
All right, next fighter to the scale in the UFC Women's Flyweight Division, Victoria Leonardo.
And we will obviously answer them when there's a little bit of a lull in the action. But if you are just joining us, this is live pitches now from Houston, Texas, ahead of UFC 265, as the fighters, boys and girls, are weighing in ahead of tomorrow night's action live on BT Sport. This is Victoria Leonardo on the scales. Her opponent's already weighed in, came through good.
Leonardo's a 31-year-old Spanish teacher from Louisiana.
Right on the nose, 125, the official weight for Victoria Leonardo.
Bang on. She used to be a big star on the Invicta, the all-women promotion. She used to win bonuses there all the time. But she actually made a UFC debut on Fight Island and lost. So she'll be keen to get her first UFC win.
Set for his 40th professional MMA
Tell you what, they're flying through these tonight or today.
Yeah.
Right, over to you, Nicholas. If I'm not mistaken, you picked this as a potential fight of the night. This is your pick from the prelims. Bobby Green's on the scales.
Yeah, man. Bobby Green always turns up, always throws down, always values for money.
The official weight for Bobby Green.
But
yeah,
he's got a big fight, man. Fiziev's tough.
Yeah, no, he is. Fiziev is unreal. I called his debut on Fight Island last year, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I mean, the kicking ability, the striking ability in general of that man is absolutely sensational.
In the UFC
Bob Green,
as
you know, as you said,
you can see her fight live on pay-per-view tomorrow night. Angela Hill.
Yeah, Bobby Green always brings it, as does Angela Hill. Angela overtime. Yes. Is it overtime? Overkill? Overkill Hill. My bad. Got there.
But again, going back to this division,
he's old.
We obviously know who the champion is in this division in Rose. Wiley will be waiting, obviously, for an opportunity to get a shot back in her. We don't know what Joanna's like. Where is she? Is she always on holiday? We've got girls that are obviously moving up in weight. I know that this is a weird division, but these girls are only 1 or 2 wins away.
The official weight, 115
having
pounds
shots in the past,
Angela Hill.
So a good win against Tisha Torres, another good win, and she's back in the mix, is Angela.
Yeah, and she's becoming a bit of a media personality as well. Obviously, she's working
the scale also in the UFC Women's Strawweight Division and competing live on ESPN2, Jessica Penne.
And Angela's fighting, it seems like every month or two, so she's doing the right thing. She's getting her face out there. People know her name now because they often see her regularly competing. Okay, she's had mixed results, but still, as you said, a good win over someone like Tecia Torres puts her in a great position. And here's the returning
pounds,
Jessica
the official weight for Jessica Penne.
One of the luckiest girls, in my opinion, in the UFC. Ciryl failings when it comes to performance-enhancing drug tests. She was threatened with a 4-year ban not so long ago, but she ended up serving 20 months. I think she's had one fight back since that, and obviously taking on Carolina at the weekend. Again, a massive crossroads fight for both of those girls, given the ages, and I don't want to go on too much about the ages.
All right, next fighter to the scale, the other half of our
co-main
event. He is the king of Rio de Janeiro, former two-time UFC featherweight champion, Jose Aldo Jr.
Both Kowalkiewicz and Penn, exactly the same. They fought, had great runs to a strawweight title shot. They lost, and now they're struggling to put 2 wins together, both of them.
Here's the man.
Looks happy, doesn't he? Come on, Scarface. Give us a smile, son.
136, the official weight for the future Hall of Famer, Jose Aldo.
Listen, I know that that's a big ask for him to get down to that weight, but since he's been there, Mike, he's been blooming impressive, hasn't he?
Oh, he's been absolutely fantastic. I'm just trying to look at his record.
All right, next fighter to weigh in this morning in the UFC's light heavyweight division,
awesome.
Alonzo Menefield.
As we said, last time out was against Marlon Vera. Trust me, I train with Marlon Vera. I see him in the gym. He's switched on. He's capable. He's talented. He's a well-rounded threat everywhere. And Jose just beat him. That just says to me that Jose Aldo is still at the top of his game. He's still pushing hard, still doing everything he can to try and be a champion at bantamweight. And if he was to even just get a title shot, that would be insane. But I'm telling you, a good win tonight over Pedro Munhoz, it wouldn't be crazy to hear that kind of talk.
No, absolutely. Mike, you picked this one for your potential banger on the prelims. Menefield taking on Herman. Menefield, a lot of UK fight fans will remember him. Obviously in with Paul Craig. Again, a great victory there. Tell me why you picked this one.
Yeah, well, listen, I mean, I'm a little biased with the Season 3 Ultimate Fighter guys. Obviously, I was on there back in the day, 2005. So, Ed Herman still going strong after all these years. He's an inspiration to me. I don't know how he does it, even though he doesn't like me these days, because he had a little, he kind of faked a groin strike, didn't he? And I called it how I saw it, because we're on the replay. Division,
Jamie Simmons.
On the replay, it clearly missed. Do you know what I mean? And anyway, he got a little offended and he sent me some abuse on social media. But still, that aside, I'm still excited to see him in there. Wish you all the best, Ed Herman and Alonzo Menefield. He's always fun. So them two are going to go to war. Ed Herman's not, he only fights one way, and that's in wars. Lots of clinching
for Jamie Simmons.
Lots of clinching and lots of boxing. Should be a good fight, though.
I love the fact that fighters slide into your DMs questioning you making comments on commentary. It's your job now, man. That's your job. That's what you've got to do, ain't you? You know what I mean? You're not being offensive.
Uriah Hall, when Derek Brunson was making his walkout against, I think it was Kevin Holland, I said, oh, yeah. And I was giving Uriah Hall a compliment saying what a great fighter Derek had beaten. And then afterwards, because I said, oh, and he knocked out Uriah Hall, not long ago, whatever. However I said it, I forget the context. Anyway, I get a message. He didn't knock me out. So I look at Wikipedia. I think we talked about this. And it says on there, TKO. I'm like, buddy, it was technically a knockout. You got knocked out. What are you doing? I'm not attacking you. Jeez Louise. But still, that's the way it goes. That's the way it goes. I know the same thing myself. When I was a fighter, we're very sensitive. I'd see people picking against me because in the locker rooms, they got the TV on with the pre-show and the post-show, and I'd see fighters on there that I thought I was friendly with. And they're like, oh, yeah, Bisping's going to lose this one. I've got such and such. And I was like, right, that's it. You're dead to me. Simple as that. When I see you. So I'm like, listen, I get it. We're sensitive people. We put a lot into this. We care for it greatly. And to see someone going against you, yeah, you kind of do take it personally.
You can see a poll up on the screen there. If you're watching us online, you're more than welcome to interact with everything we're doing. We're on social media as well. Two Brazilians going head-to-head at UFC 265 in that co-main event, that boosted co-main event, obviously with the Amanda Nunes title fight just falling off. How does it go down? A lot of people watching this, Nick, favouring Jose Aldo. I've got to admit, I do favour Jose Aldo, but I didn't see it as that big of a discrepancy. We've got a great Muay Thai fighter, taking on a great guy, maybe from a more of a boxing stance. Two lads that like to strike. They've both got great grappling as well. I think it's a little bit more evenly matched than 73-27, I do.
Yeah, I think a lot of people obviously are still very much supporting Aldo in terms of him being an icon. You know, he was undefeated for 10 years. He was absolutely phenomenal. Still a big argument. The greatest featherweight we've ever seen in the sport, even though the guys at the top now, I think Max Holloway is certainly pushing him for that mantle. But I think people look back fondly on what Jose Aldo did for the sport and did for that weight division especially. I think a lot of people want to see him back on top. I think we all do. We'd love to see him back revitalised and getting a title shot when it's ready for him, not when it was kind of handed to him against Petr Yan, which it's kind of the timing was wrong then. But tell you what, a big win over Munhoz will absolutely throw him back into that equation. But you're right, Munhoz always turns up. And this is a guy that doesn't give up as well. He had good coaches over in California, Rafael Cordero, had a great wrestling coach there in Kenny Johnson as well. But he was like, you know what, I can do better, I can get more. So he crossed the whole country, went over to ATT. He's rebuilt himself there. He's had some good wins. The Cody Garbrandt win was outstanding. The two losses he's had recently, one was against Aldo, the current champion. The other one was a very close split decision against the icon that is Frankie Edgar. So you better believe that Pedro Munhoz is at his peak of his powers as well. So that's why this one's super intriguing, because I'm like you. I'm 50-50 on it, because Munhoz knows he changes his life by beating Jose Aldo, because he could be one win away from a title shot.
If you have only just joined us here on the... Go on, Mike. Go on, son. Go on.
No. Sorry, mate. My bad. A little bit of a delay. I was going to say, I totally agree. But when you look at Jose Aldo versus Pedro Munhoz, I think the skills and a lot of the advantages fall to the side of Jose Aldo. Obviously, when you're talking experience, Jose all day. I think well-rounded ability, being able to mix it in everywhere. I think Jose takes the biscuit there. He's probably got better kicks. I think the two areas... Maybe I'm being a little unfair, that Pedro has on his side. I think punch power, and also he's younger. Simple as that. There's not as many miles on the clock. As we know, Jose's been in there a long time, taking a lot of damage, and you can't do this forever. Now, he has impressed me at bantamweight, Jose Aldo. I was worried about his ability to take a punch going down that low, but he's shown he's been able to pass that test. However, as I said, the punch power does belong to Pedro Munhoz, and he has got youth on his side. Technically, and in terms of experience and strategy, he's at a disadvantage. But he's got that youth, and he's got the power, and he's got the belief on his side to go forward and swing. If he can find the mark, he could put Jose Aldo down. And I think that's what he's got to do. He's got to turn this into a brawl. I don't think he can have a technical boxing match or even a technical MMA match. If he does that and it kind of falls into that sparring tempo, that kind of cadence, then I think he's going to lose this fight. He turns it into a dogfight and gets kind of wild in there. He can catch Jose and he can put him down.
Yeah, I agree. Could be a cracker. Anyway, if you have just tuned in, 17 minutes into the weigh-ins in Houston, Jose Aldo and Pedro Munhoz have come through. They're on weight, job done. I'm not expecting to see any heavyweights anytime soon. You know what it's like when we do these types of shows. The lads that can make the weight the easiest will normally take the longest. So we're expecting them to take the time. Whilst we've got a little bit of a break
is ready to weigh in the UFC's bantamweight division. He is
one of the heavyweights.
Johns.
That would have been perfect timing if it was one of the main events then.
Miles Johns coming through. His opponent, Anderson Dos Santos, weighed in moments ago. He came through good. This is on the early prelims.
Weight 136 pounds for Miles Johns.
There you go.
This guy will get big support. He's from Dallas. He's actually a nurse during the day. Juggles being a full-time nurse with being a MMA fighter, but a former legacy champion as well. So in the good pedigree. But he'll have big home support.
Morales.
Yeah, Miles is a great wrestler as well. Very, very talented. As you say, a qualified nurse. So a lot of his family and his wife are, give him a lot of pressure thinking, you're doing the right thing. Maybe, you spent all that time in college and whatnot training to be a nurse, and now you're abandoning it all. But fair play, they're changing his dream.
Official weight for Vince Morales.
Vince Morales coming through, taking on Draco Rodriguez. That's on the prelims. You'll catch that from 1 a.m. on BT Sport in the early hours of Sunday morning. It kicks off, by the way, that with Karolina Kowalkiewicz taking on Jessica Pena. That'll be your first fight on BT Sport. And don't forget Bobby Green taking on Rafael Fiziev, which is the headliner to those prelims before that main card gets underway at 3 a.m. Boys, just whilst we've got a little bit of a break in action, hopefully it lasts a little bit long because I want to do good service to this particular fight. because stylistically, I think every single fight fan knows exactly what each fighter wants to do in this fight. Michael Chiesa taking on Vicente Luque in the welterweight division. A really big fight for both guys if they want to propel themselves up to the top table and start to be discussed amongst those that can challenge for UFC gold. Here's a few stats, Mike. You'll love this, seeing as that I've got my book out today. I've been doing a little bit of work on Sun Lounger, all right, whilst I've been out here. So, I've just been snorkeling like you, mate. I've been doing a bit. Anyway, Chiesa has attempted 19 takedowns at welterweight. He's completed 25 of them. And when he does get the takedown,
What did you just say?
He's attempted 19, but he's completed 25 of them. Wow, he really is a magician.
He's attempted 25, but he's completed 19.
Hey, back to that Sun Lounger, mate. Back to that Sun Lounger. Let's snorkeling. Next time you show up, if you're getting your stats wrong, I'm sorry, I'm going to call it right now. You're fired. All right? Nah.
To be fair, it's actually a good stat, that, because I think the way that I said it actually rams home the prowess of Chiesa when it comes to his grappling. He's that blooming good. He can complete more than he actually attempts.
Took the opponent and the referee out as well. Took the opponent and the referee with one takedown.
Oh dear. Brilliant.
Double takedown.
When he does get you down as well, he does control the rest of the round for around about 70% of the time. But in total comparison, when it comes to strikes from distance, Vicente Luque, I think there's 66 fighters. I know there is. There's 66 fighters that have had 10 or more fights in this particular division, and there's nobody that strikes on a more consistent occasion over a minute to minute, round by round, than Vicente Luque. So basically what I'm saying is that we've got a grappler against a striker. Which style is going to be the one that comes through in the end, Mr. Bisping?
Yeah, and not trying to correct you, Adam, I'm really not, but it's more of a takedown artist against a non-wrestler. You know what I'm saying? Because on the feet, for sure, Vicente Luque, I believe, has the advantage. They've got a similar reach. He's got bigger power, he's got better boxing, he's got better striking, he's got better teammates, I would say, as well. And he's also got a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. So when it hits the ground, he knows what he's doing. But for Michael Chiesa, and your point is a fair one, for Michael Chiesa, we know the way he fights. Every time it's always the same. He goes forward, he punches his way into a clinch, and he wants to take you down and dominate you on the ground. And I even asked him, and I think if I'm repeating myself, I apologize, but I said to him, what are you going to do when that doesn't work? He said, well, of course, I've always got a plan B. He said, but so far, plan A is working. It is working every single time. And you know, hey, listen, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. He knows what he's doing. Everybody knows what he's going to try and do, you know, but it's worked against guys like Rafael dos Anjos. And now, while Rafael dos Anjos is a smaller version of Vicente Luque, very, very similar skill sets. You know, BJJ black belt, good, powerful striker. And of course, dos Anjos, former champion as well. By the way, I can't believe that Chiesa used to make 155 because the man's absolutely gigantic. So it's absolutely crazy to me that he did that. But yeah, no, you're right. It is kind of a striker versus grappler to a certain degree, because to win this fight, Vicente has got to, I say, avoid the clinch, because Chiesa will win that battle, and he's got to, you know, use the striking. For Chiesa, got to grab him, take him down. If it stays standing up, just as Tyrone Woodley, Michael Chiesa probably takes a dive. Not a dive. That sounds like he's going to give up. That's not what I mean. He's going to fall over. I'm going to pick my words better. You heard it here first. He has to throw in this fight. He's got 50 grand at the bookies.
Nick, regarding the magnitude of this fight, we know what's going on at the top end, and obviously there's a few runners and riders there that are there or thereabouts when it comes to getting a fight with Kamaru Usman. None more so than our very own Leon Edwards. But these boys, there's a bit of pressure on them actually this weekend. Make a bit of a statement. Start to make a little bit of a noise, because we said a couple of weeks ago, didn't we, that there was an opportunity there for Gilbert Burns and Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Gilbert Burns came up with a wonderful, wonderful game plan to get the job done, but did he make the statement needed for us all to start making noise for Gilbert Burns once again? These boys have got an opportunity at the weekend to really start to pop their head above everybody else.
Yeah, Chiesa's ranked number 5, Luque's ranked number 6. So, of course, they're on the peripheries of getting that opportunity. I think that's why both these guys have jumped at the fight. I think stylistically, they both see what their advantages are, and they both see ways that they can clearly win this fight. I think, you know, Chiesa, for me, I've said it before and I'll say it again, he's the king of the Who Needs Him club at 170. You know what he's going to do. You just can't stop him doing it. He's absolutely horrible. But I think what Luque fancies is, okay, if he puts me on his back, good luck. I'm a black belt and I'm more than capable on my back. So I think that's why he's jumped at the fight. But if one of these guys can really stand out, if one of these guys can really make a statement, then of course an opportunity could come early next year. But it's a strange weight division, and a lot of these guys in the top 10 have already been in with Kamaru Usman and lost, and most of them have lost decisively. And that's something certainly that Chiesa, Luque, that's what they'll be looking at and going, wait, I'm fresh meat, man. I'm undefeated. In Chiesa, of course, undefeated, as I said, welterweight. I'm undefeated. No one can stop me. Get me in with the champion.
Whilst we're talking about welterweights, one man who's actually on deck this week is Gilbert Burns. He's a teammate of Vicente Luque. I think he's been working with him behind the scenes as well. And he's probably the most active fighter at the moment on social media, Mike. He's been going for it, hasn't he? The man is trying to get himself a fight. Doesn't matter who it is, he has been on everybody. Nothing's coming forward as of yet, but you can't fault the kid for trying. He's put in a great display against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, and now he's calling out everybody. He wants the smoke for the back end of this year so he can get himself back into title contention.
Yeah, I totally agree. He's doing everything he can, right? He's trying to call out big names, get a big win, and try and get a title fight again down the line. But as Nick just said a moment ago, there is a potential here for Vicente and Michael Chiesa to creep in to the upper echelon of the welterweight division. Because when you talk about title shots, it's always Leon Edwards, Colby Covington, Jorge Masvidal. These are the type of names, and these are the fights that we've seen kind of just repeating history. For Vicente Luque, he just beat Tyron Woodley. Before that, it was Randy Brown and Nico Price. So obviously with Tyron Woodley, there was a big jump up there in terms of name brand, household name recognition. If he can add Michael Chiesa to that list as well, all of a sudden now he's a 4-fight win streak. He's beaten a former champion. He's beaten a hot contender as well. Now he's going to creep into those conversations. You know what I mean? And unfortunately for Gilbert Burns, I mean, listen, if he could get a Leon Edwards or a Jorge Masvidal, if he could beat them, then okay, maybe we see that fight again down the line. But you're right, Adam. He has been calling these people out, and I don't think he's even called out Nate Diaz as well. Nobody's responded. I don't know. Have I missed that? Because I have lost my phone. No. I can't log into me. Nope. My daughter's laptop got robbed, and my iPhone's broken, and I'm due to two-factor authentication. I'm locked out of email, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I'm locked out of everything. So if anyone sees this and you're sending me messages or you're wondering why I haven't responded to your email, and I apologize to BT Sport for using this as a messaging system, but it's because I'm stranded in Mexico and the cartel are after me and I got to keep my head low. But yeah, you're right. Big opportunity for Vicente Luque.
Yeah. You having a good holiday, Mike? Sounds like you're having a blinder, pal.
Mate, we land at the airport, and check this out, because my daughter, she loves her laptop. It's a nice, like, metallic pink. She treasures it. We got it for Christmas, starting college, all the rest of it. And she's like, Dad, I don't want to put my laptop in the suitcase. I'm like, listen, and she says this every time when we went to New Orleans, same thing. I'm like, Ellie, I fly all over the world all the time. I always pack my laptop in my suitcase because, when I'm on a plane, I'm not sitting there writing scripts or studying and things like that. I'm watching a movie and having a glass of wine. And when I get to the airport, I unpack and there is my laptop. I said, Ellie, you're fine. She says, oh, I don't know, Dad, I don't know. We land there in Mexico. Mexico immigration, by the way. Oh, my God, 2.5 hours to get through it. It was a nightmare. And then we get to the hotel. We unpack. It's almost midnight. We're knackered. My daughter wants a laptop. I'm like, Ellie, really? At this time of night? You're not doing anything? And she's like, I just want to make sure my laptop's there. I'm like, okay, look, here, unzip, robbed, gone.
No
so
way.
That was the start of the holiday. But having a great time in Mexico. Lovely people. And they are.
Oh. Right, let's...
Brilliant.
Back to the fight.
Yes, let's get back to the fights. Questions coming in fast from people watching this, and we appreciate that. So keep them coming, and we will try our very best over the next few moments to get to some of those. Thank you very much to Fight Let's. I think that's on Twitter. The Let's. We've spoken to these guys before. The Let's Talk Fighter podcast. Where does Jones fit into this heavyweight division? It is a peculiar situation, this, Nick, because obviously we've got an interim title fight this weekend. We already have a champion. We've got a guy that has the most amount of title defenses, thinking to himself, hang on a minute, I've only just lost the title. Do I get another crack? Where does Jon Jones fit in this for you? Because he does feel like a shadow that's kind of just riding over the top of the whole thing.
All right, next fighter to the scale. He is the man around whom this fight card was built. The number 2 ranked heavyweight contender.
Speaking of which,
Houston's own Derrick the Black Beast Lewis.
Speaking of which, hold that thought, Nick. We'll get straight back into this conversation because it seems quite apt. that one of the heavyweights in the main event at UFC 265, he's joining us now right on the scales. Houston's own Derrick Lewis. Let's see where he's at. I've got to say, he's got himself in some shape in the last 2 years, man. Big time.
$264.5, the official weight for the Black Beast, Derrick Lewis.
Yeah, that's a cut.
Because I was wondering.
Weight this morning.
Well, that's what I was wondering. But if he came in at 264, that would allude me to think that he didn't cut weight, But who knows? Maybe he's, a little over efficient. But still, no, you're absolutely right. Got himself in way better shape, became a way better athlete. And incidentally, I'm reading a book on George Foreman called, what's it called? No, whatever. Anyway, I forgot the title of it already. I've been hitting the head far too many times. But this week, ESPN shared a thing. I don't know if you saw it. It was a picture of Derrick Lewis when he was younger with George Foreman. And apparently, George Foreman bought him a car when he was younger to help support him on his quest to being a combat athlete. But then when he decided to get into MMA and not boxing, old George Foreman took the car back. Said, no, that's mine. I'm taking it back. And then that led me to Google the net worth of George Foreman. What do you think?
Oh, he made an absolute fortune because of the grills, didn't he?
Yeah,
he made millions and millions because of the grills.
$300 million. Apparently, in the prime of those George Foreman grills, he was making $45 million a month in royalties. So anyway, there you go. So I'm in the wrong business. I'm sitting here thinking, right, what needs cooking?
The Bisping toaster. Come on, we need a Bisping toaster.
This is what I love about this show.
Very cheesy.
Right? I come here with the stats about takedowns and leg kicks and, you know what I mean, betting for the fights. Bisping's come here about net worth of a guy that makes the Foreman grill. Love that. Love that. This is the vibes. This is where we're at.
This is the extra periphery information that I give. Yeah, listen, I'll cover the fight game, but everything around it, everything surrounding the ins and outs, the do's, the don'ts, the tequila that Jorge Masvidal is making, the Foreman grills that came out in the 90s that no one cares about anymore.
That's it. Personality, not analyst. Right, Mike? You're just ramming it home now. You're letting them know that it's personality and not analyst.
Exactly.
Nick, going back to what we were saying a moment or two ago about John Jones, pal, where does he sit in the whole of this conversation?
Listen, as Mike pointed out in the build-up to this fight this weekend, this is an interim title fight to find the number one contender because Francis Ngannou has chosen to be inactive until the end of the year. There is no jumping in now from John Jones or Stipe Miocic, regardless of what I, as a fan of both those guys, think in terms of pecking order. The UFC only do interim belts for a reason, and that's to find the next leading contender. The winner this weekend, it's not like boxing. He won't then go and defend the interim belt. That doesn't happen. As soon as the champion's back, he must face the interim champion, which means that Jones and Stipe are left at a kind of a waiting period now. I know we've been waiting for John Jones because he wants more money. But I've heard rumours about Jones versus Stipe before the end of the year, which would be absolutely massive for the heavyweight division and would absolutely throw up the next contender for the start of the new year once the interim and the full belt are unified together.
Your pals on here, Ed Herman.
Yeah.
So Manifield came through a little earlier on.
I mean, listen, if you look at the two on the scale, certainly the most impressive physical specimen would be Alonzo Manifield. Ed Herman been around a long, long time, veteran of the sport, lots of damage, but giving out lots of damage as well.
The official weight for Ed Herman.
Made it.
Makes weight with the curtain. Yeah. Hey, listen, the problem is though, Nick, when you're talking there about the next contender, if it was Stipe versus John Jones, and you're right, I think in any other time that would be, we're doing an interim title this weekend. That, so even if they did Jones versus Stipe, they can't put the winner of that fight ahead of the interim title champ. So that will create a little confusion.
Yeah, I think they'd have to do Jones versus Stipe end of the year, alongside, maybe not the same night, but you'd have to do Ngannou versus the winner this weekend for the full belt at the end of the year. And as I say, go into 2022, you've got then a standout from Stipe and Jones to be a contender, obviously against whoever's got the champion once the dust settles. But I just wanted to ask you there about Ed Herman. Obviously, he made his debut in the UFC same night as you. Minutes before you, he lost the middleweight final of Tough 3. Obviously, you went on to win Tough 3 at light heavyweight, Mike. You went on to achieve all you achieved. Why has Ed Herman not been able to break in to a title contention at middleweight? What's the difference between his journey and your journey?
I mean, I have no idea, to be honest. I haven't been there every step of the way with Ed Herman and saw what went wrong. Do you know what I'm saying? Everyone's different in this game. You know, Ed was a guy that had tons of potential. You know what I mean? So it wasn't like he didn't have the skill or the drive or the fire or anything like that. But who knows? Who knows what it was? You know. But you know, he had an up and down career. And he toyed between middleweight and light heavyweight, and I was obviously staying at light heavyweight. But I don't know. You tell me. There's only one Mikey B, Adam. What do you want me to say to that? So tell me, Mr. Bisping, why hasn't Ed Herman had quite the career that you have? Why isn't he in the Hall of Fame? I'm like, how do I answer this without sounding like I've disappeared up my own backside? Do you know what I mean? Because I'm better. Because I'm better. Simple as that, okay?
He's still going now, though, Mike. He's age 40 now. Obviously, he's the longest active UFC fighter left on the roster, with yourself leaving, Diego Sanchez leaving. He's been with the UFC longer than anybody. If you hadn't have won UFC gold, do you think you'd have kept going? Would you kept conning a doctor to keep active, to keep the dream alive? Is that why Ed Herman's still fighting?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, you know, fighters, we dedicate so much to this sport that it doesn't allow time for anything else. And then when I got my eye injured, I started focusing on other things because I knew I was on borrowed time with my career. And that was a blessing in disguise. But for most people, most fighters, you have to be both feet in. Once one foot's out the door, once you start thinking about other things, Dana White says it all the time. And once he hears retirement out of a fighter's mouth, then maybe they should go and retire. For me, I was kind of in a unique situation with the eye condition, so I was trying to open other doors. But Ed Herman, you know, he hasn't, you know, reached the highest heights of the sport. He wasn't a champion. He's had a great career. He's had a fantastic career. And I'm sure he's got some money in the bank and he's done very well. But is he set up to where he can just sit out for the rest of his life and do something else? I would say, and I haven't spoken to Ed for a while, this is probably, I'm not saying all he knows. I'm not saying the man's not an educated guy. That's not what I'm saying. But this is his bread and butter. This is his wheelhouse. And this is what he's dedicated his entire life to for the last 15, 20 years. So as of right now, if the body's still able to do it, then why wouldn't he go out there and still check in a few more large paydays before he decides to call it a day? Because it's got to be coming soon. You know, I would assume maybe another year or two tops.
Whereas DJ Mikey B has obviously got a wicked analytic brain. If only you had a personality as well, eh? Maybe.
For those people that don't know, that don't watch every single episode of this show, Nick and I, so certain people got voted for personality award, and I got voted for analyst award, and I don't want it. Yeah, I've never been so insulted in my life. Analyst of the year. Lump me in with Dominic Cruz. My God, I'd rather watch paint dry. My God, me, Dominic Cruz. Who else are you going to stick in there? Who else is boring? Let's throw some of the boring people in there.
Yeah, I've got a compliment. I've got a compliment for you, Mike. Whilst I was doing a little bit of research this morning on my Sun Lounger and going through the strike differential between the big heavyweights, Cyril Gane, as I mentioned earlier on, 232 strikes landed, more than people have actually hit him in only 6 fights, which is absolutely sensational. I had a little bit of a flick down to the middleweight division and looked at the history of the UFC division there, just to see who had the best strikes landed to strikes taken in that differential. Any guesses?
I have no idea. I don't say.
Yeah, I bet you've got it framed at home, haven't you?
Ed Herman?
Not Ed Herman, mate. No, maybe that's the reason why. That's the reason why, Nicholas. Mr. Michael Bisping is number 1 in the middleweight division. Number 1. 435 strikes more landed than taken in that division. Sensational.
Oh, well, not bad. But I did have a lot of fights, so maybe that's why. Maybe that skews the stat.
Yeah, look at you play yourself down now, right? Come on.
Hey, I've got to sit here and pick myself up the whole time. People are going to go, oh my God, we didn't like him to start with, but now he's gone way off the deep end.
Listen, whilst we've kind of got this onto middleweights and you and things loosely connected to you, let's talk Rockhold, shall we? because obviously this week off the back of last week, we saw a great performance from Strickland against Uriah Hall. And now this week we are learning that the fight has been offered to Luke Rockhold. I believe that he's accepted it. Madison Square Garden in November is supposed to be when that's happening. What do you make of it? Luke Rockhold and Sean Strickland at the back end of this year.
Yeah, so I saw an article this week where Rockhold said he was offered Sean Strickland a while ago, and he was like, this guy's a nobody. He does nothing for me. Of course, Rockhold's kind of entitled to that opinion. He was a mainstay a few years ago. He was the champion. He went through everybody like a hot knife through butter. He looked sensational. He looked like he could never be beaten until he bumped into some amazing guy. But then it was a big fall from grace though, right? Because he got knocked out again off Jan. He got knocked out of Yoel Romero. And that is this sport, right? 1 minute you're on top of it, then all of a sudden, before you know it, a blink of an eye seemingly, because a year goes by quick, then the tables have turned. In that time while he's been away, because he has been waiting for the perfect comeback fight, Sean Strickland's been chipping away. He's been doing great work. And last week against Uriah Hall, I thought he looked absolutely fantastic. Of course, the technicality ability was there. The boxing looked great. The jab was sensational. But it was the mind as well. He believed in himself so much, and he had a pure advantage there against Uriah Hall, who sometimes is great when the fight's going his way, but kind of wilts to the pressure when he's kind of taking a beating. And I think that's what we saw. So so now Rockhold's like, okay, well, now he's getting a name for himself. He's just won a main event. He's just beat Uriah Hall. So I think that will put him at 7 or 8 in the rankings. So it's a ranked guy, a highly ranked guy. And for Rockhold to come back on Madison Square Garden, he said, okay, that kind of turns me on a little bit. That's a big deal. But I'll be honest. Where is Luke Rockhold at these days? I see him in the gym and he looks phenomenal. He's still the physical specimen. He's still got the athletic ability that he's always had. Trust me, he loves to show off. I'm there. I do not go topless in the gym right now. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, everyone gets changed by the benches just by the side of the mats. I'm nipping. I'm just going to have a pee, lads. I take my top off in there. I come back out. Why'd you get changed in there? Oh, there's girls around. Didn't want to do it. Rockhold, he's around in his underpants. He's doing cartwheels. He's jumping off the side of the cage. Seriously, he's doing these warm-up routines with Swiss balls that I've never seen. 6-pack for days. It's all well and good having muscle on your abs, but has he still got him on his chin? Can he still take a shot? Because he's going to have to against Sean Strickland. Listen, Luke has I think he's the better fighter, technically wise, but is he the better fighter in terms of heart and fire and ability to trade in the pocket? I don't know. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. And this will be a huge fight to see where he's at, because this could be the end of Luke Rockhold if he loses this fight. If he loses this one, I think the dream of him coming back and getting the belt again at a late age is done. But if he beats Sean Strickland, the rising contender that's ranked 7 or 8, that's on fire, hey, a fight with Izzy isn't a million miles away. And I think Izzy needs fresh contenders, because he's starting to go do the Kamaru Usman. He's starting to go through everybody and just do rematches now. So Luke Rockhold, that would be an interesting fight. But of course, got to get past Sean Strickland, and that's not easy right now.
It's a weird one for Luke, isn't it, Nick? As Mike just said there, it is a must. I know that every fight's a must-win fight. I know it is. But this, regarding career and aspirations, as Mike just said a moment or two ago, he cannot lose this fight. If indeed he signs it and takes it.
Yeah, as Mike said, he's been at the top of the tree. He was the guy. There was a moment in time there when people were saying, "Wow, Luke Rockhold's going to keep this belt forever and a day." He's this elite athlete. He could have been a professional skateboarder. He could have been a professional surfer. I think one of his brothers does one of those professionally. I think he's a surfer. He was hanging around with Demi Lovato. He was starring on The Bachelor in the US. He was a big star, and he really started to cross over into the mainstream. Then he swallowed the left hook and his world came crashing down. And unfortunately for Luke Rockhold, he's now been jumping around everywhere. Now he seems to have a new home, in Mike's old gym. And he seems to have settled down a bit there. But it's hard to reinvent yourself. And once you've been to the top of the mountain and then been knocked down the mountain, getting back up to the top again when you feel like, I've been there and done it, I can do this. You kind of forget the graft that got you there in the first place. Meanwhile, the likes of Sean Strickland and some of these other guys in this middleweight division that haven't been to the top yet, they've got the hunger still. They haven't even had that taste of fame to satisfy them in any way. And I think that's what Mike's touching on there in terms of heart and desire. No doubt in Rockhold's heart and desire on his way up the mountain. But once you've been there and done it and you've wore the T-shirt, it's really hard to reinvent yourself and come back again. And that's the ultimate test for Rockhold. And I think that's why he kind of knocked a few opponents back, because he knows himself.
To the scale,
I lost to Sean Strickland.
In the world, he has
game over.
Number 6 next to his name at present, the silent assassin, Vicente Luque.
Now then, this is a fight that we were previewing a moment or two ago. We'll come back to that chat about middleweights, because I obviously want to bring in our own Darren Till and that upcoming fight with Derek Brunson, which looks like it's heading to Las Vegas rather than London. But let's get the weight in for Vicente Luque taking on Michael Chiesa in this welterweight fight. Vicente looking in incredible shape.
And 170 pounds, the official weight for Vicente Luque.
There you go. Just in case you are just joining us, just quickly before we move on with our conversations. Derrick Lewis came through a little earlier on. He's weighed in. We're still waiting for Cyril Gane, of course, to come through, which is our main event for the interim heavyweight title. Jose Aldo and Pedro Munhoz did the business there in the buffet at the moment, enjoying themselves. They weighed in all good. You've just seen Vicente Luque there. Tisha Torres and Angela Hill came through, as Song Yadong. Still waiting for Casey Kenney. That will make up your main card. That main card gets underway from 3 a.m. on BT Sport in the early hours of Sunday morning. Still waiting for Rafael Fiziev and Draco Rodriguez from the prelims, and Manel Cap, former Rising champion, from the early prelims as well. Everybody else has come through. Nobody's missed weight as of yet. Fingers crossed they won't. But that's the current state of play. So thank you very much for joining us, wherever you are joining us around the world, for our live weigh-in show, part of our Fight Week presentation here on BT Sport. You know who these two are. So let's get straight back into the conversation, shall we? A little question just popped up there. I think it came in from Instagram, actually. It was regarding Darren Till, Mike. You've just mentioned 2 moments ago, Izzy's looking for those opponents. He's looking for those contenders. He's now going back round the hill, fighting the rematches and what have you. You look at Darren Till, Derek Brunson, Darren Till in particular, and this is no disrespect to Derek Brunson. We look at the personality of Till. We look at what would make a fight, what would make captivating viewing. Darren Till, Israel Adesanya, I think on paper makes an awful lot of sense, but Till needs those wins. Does a win against Derek Brunson get him a title shot next, or does he have to do one more?
Yeah, listen, it certainly does when the champion himself is calling for a fight with Darren Till, because everything you said, Israel's aware of that. He knows. Listen, number one, there's some losses on Darren's career, but come on, they're razor split decisions. All right, there's the Jorge Masvidal thing, but the other ones were super, super close. Like the one against Whittaker, you know what I mean? The last 30 seconds of that final takedown could have been either way. You know what I'm saying? So forget about that. When you know the sport and you know the ability and how the fights went down, if you look at the black and white of the record, it kind of paints a false narrative. You know, these were extremely close fights. Now, of course, you got to win. And as I said, Israel Adesanya is calling for a fight with Darren Till. He would love to fight him, but of course, you got to be in the win. You got to be in the green. You know, you got to be on a win streak to fight the champ. And beating Derek Brunson. What was Darren's last fight? It was Robert Whittaker, right? Am I correct? Just refresh me there. Yeah. So that would be one win. But again, it's might seem unusual to get a title fight
next
after one
athlete
win.
is ready to weigh in the UFC's bantamweight division, Draco Rodriguez.
He's a big star. He's a household name in mixed martial arts. He's got a massive personality. He's got a very, very exciting style. And stylistically, the matchup between Adesanya and Till, what a fight that would be. So you never know. You know, maybe he might need one more, but if he can get a win over Brunson, we could well see it. You never know.
This division's shaping up weird, isn't it? Because obviously we're hearing Paulo Costa and Marvin Vettori are going at it.
136 pounds, the official weight for Draco Rodriguez.
He looked nervous for a minute there. Then he's coming at 134. I thought he was asking for a towel at some point. Unbelievable. Draco Rodriguez there coming through. He's taking on Vince Morales. That's on the prelims. But on this, out of all these middleweights, we've just been speaking about Luke Rockhold there. We've obviously got the situation where Paulo Costa might be taking on Marvin Vettori. We all kind of know that Robert Whittaker is going to be next in line, but somebody's got to stick their head up. Somebody's got to stick their head above the parapet in order to get that shot against Israel Adesanya. And it just seems that Darren Till is that front runner with Izzy, as you've just said, Mike, calling for a fight with a Scouser.
Yeah, and listen, if he's got to win and win big, you know what I mean? I'm not trying to put more pressure on Darren. First and foremost, he just wants to win the fight. That's most important. But if he wants to really make a stake for getting that title shot, that elusive title shot, or the fight that Israel and everybody wants to see, everyone in the UK wants to see it, and I think a lot of people all over the world, UFC fans, want to see Darren Till go up against Israel Adesanya. We don't want to see him just rehashing and going through the same people. We've seen the Whittaker fight. Granted, I'm a massive fan of Whittaker, and I think the second Whittaker fight and Izzy's going to be a lot different than the first one. I really do. Certainly when you look at what Whittaker did to Gastelum and how the fight and the technical ability in that fight. If you understand fighting, you understand the finer nuances and the technical ability. Robert Whittaker was just amazing in that fight. So the rematch with Izzy, I think, will be different. But still, as I say, you know, when you look at it on paper, it's all there for the taking for Darren Till, but he's got to win big. He can't just scrape by in a lackluster split decision. If the fight was going to be in London, by all accounts, now it's going to be in Vegas, which is a terrible shame. I was looking forward to coming home and calling my first ever fight in London. That would have been amazing. But still, it's going to be in Vegas, just down the road. No jet lag, no 11-hour flight. In fact, it's not actually starting to sound that bad. I'll be in and out on the same day. Let's go. But if he flies out to Vegas and knocks him out in spectacular fashion, then gets on the microphone and lets Israel have it in a nice, polite, funny way, grab some headlines, hey, you never know. You know, end of the year, early next year, who knows? I think we could see it.
Nick, how much has that change affected him? Just on that, just on the location change, because we were all gearing towards London, September 4th, and obviously with what's happening with travel and being allowed in full capacity venues and all that type of stuff, it's not happening, and it's now being shifted back to Las Vegas. Has it affected Darren's preparation from a physical and mental point of view, or is he just all guns blazing for the fight, wherever it is?
Yeah, I think he's just all guns blazing. Obviously, it would have been nice to have a capacity crowd in the UK. You know, he loves playing to the fans, and I was with him on Tuesday, and he said, listen, of course it would have been nice to have home advantage. And more than anything, it's not necessarily to give him an edge over Brunson, but just to get that home support behind him. But he's like, listen, I know what's next. I beat Brunson. I've got Adesanya. I know it. Everyone's told me. Adesanya's told me he wants it. It's definitely happened. I've just got to beat Brunson, and I'm going to do it in style. That's all he kept saying to me. I'm going to do it in style. Like I was with till Tuesday. He's not living at home at the moment. His home's getting renovated. His partner and the kids are living with her parents. Till is actually living with his uncle at the moment in a bedsit in the corner of Liverpool in some, a proper housing estate, a terraced house. He's in a back room, sleeping in a single bed. And all he's doing is driving to the gym 3 times a day for training sessions and driving back to the bedsit. He's doing absolutely nothing else. I haven't seen him this focused for an awful long time. So I think the mindset is right. He knows now. He knows that what is expected of him, and he knows what the incentive is. He beats Brunson on September the 4th. He gets his arm raised in Las Vegas. He will rock the microphone. He will push for the Adesanya fight. And no doubt he'll be doing everything he can to be ringside in Australia when Adesanya fights Whittaker in the rematch so he can face the winner.
Will the Queen of Scotty Road be going over and giving him a little bit of a walkout?
You know what to say. You know what I always say. Times are hard, friends of you. Ta-da
to you. Absolutely, will.
The homecoming in Liverpool, the Queen of Scotty Road has got to be on the walk. It has to be. Got to do the press conference. Brilliant. Anyway. Keep your social media posts coming in. Keep your questions coming in as we are waiting for a few fighters still to join us for this official weigh-in show for UFC 265. Prelims for 265 get underway from 1 a.m. in the morning, in the early hours of Sunday morning, and then obviously that main card, which is topped by the interim heavyweight title fight between Derrick Lewis and Cyril Gane. We're still waiting for Cyril Gane to hit the scales. That will get underway at 3 a.m. If Gane wins, do you think he has what it takes to beat Francis, factoring their history? Thank you very much for the question, Owen Nafaldi. It's an interesting story. It's an interesting narrative. The rise of Cyril Gane has got everybody captivated in mixed martial arts. He's only been here 3 years as a professional mixed martial artist. He's had 6 fights. He's been absolutely sensational. And as Nick touched upon a little earlier on in the show, Mike, he seems this part of this new age of heavyweight contenders who can hit you and are quite decent at not getting hit themselves. It will be a fascinating matchup between himself and Francis.
It certainly would. And the question is, does he have what it takes to beat him? And I don't know. Now, of course, if Gane goes out and beats Derrick Lewis, on paper, it certainly looks like it because, as I said before, he beat Jorginho, big power, big knockout puncher, beat Volkov, and now if he beats Derrick Lewis with that in-and-out style, I mean, who knows? Maybe goes out there and blitzes him in the first round, but I think if he wins, it's going to be an in-and-out, maybe a knockout or a finish later in the round, but I don't think it's going to be go out there, bang, one shot. So if he does use that in-and-out style, then maybe you could say, well, of course he did it to all these people. Why couldn't he do it to Francis Ngannou? I think the difference between Derrick Lewis and Francis Ngannou is that, yeah, they both do rely on their knockout power. But I think Francis is a little different. I think he's a little more special when it comes to that. No disrespect to Lewis. I love Derrick Lewis, but I think Francis has the speed advantage. I think he actually has a power advantage. I think scientifically that's been proven. And then also, he throws more than one shot. And Derrick Lewis doesn't throw one. He throws one or two, maybe three. Francis Ngannou throws 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 until he gets the job done. Look at when he went forward against Jorginho Rosenstruck. Just went forward, absolutely reckless. Swing, 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 swing. Wasn't the most attractive thing. My old boxing coach, Mark Kenney, would have had a fit if I was throwing like that, but it didn't matter because guess what? One of them did land and it put him down. So that's what I'm saying. So for Cyril Gane against Francis Ngannou, it's hard to have that style when someone comes forward like a chainsaw like that. However, there is ways to beat those. That's why a good boxing coach would give you a hard time because technically it isn't sound. So on paper, maybe yes, but the practicality of standing there in a ring or a cage with Francis Ngannou, 4 or 5 rounds, it terrifies me. So I don't know. We'll see.
I want to talk actually a bit more about that new style, Nick, because I know both of you are big fans of Tom Aspinall, and I suppose from a British point of view, we want to try and get some British interest in the heavyweight division. Obviously, Mike, I know that you've spoken to us recently, so I'll come to you in a minute, but Nick, you've been following Tom's rise at Team Cowbomb for some time.
All right, next fighter to the scales, one of the top 5 welterweights in the world, competing live on pay-per-view here tomorrow night.
When it comes to stylistic matchups.
Chiesa. We'll
just get Michael Chiesa on the scales, and then I'll come back to that conversation about heavyweights. Michael Chiesa, obviously taking on Vicente Luque in the welterweight division. Vicente came through a little earlier on. I think everybody knows how this fight is going to play out stylistically. Whose style wins? Is it going to be the elite grappling of Michael Chiesa, or is it going to be the elite distance striking of Vicente Luque? Both guys, top fellas, and have a real opportunity to make a real claim as somebody that can eat at the top table of the welterweight division. Michael looking in great nick.
How did he ever take another 15 pounds?
The official weight for Michael Chiesa.
Absolutely no idea. The only person on we've got 2 people actually on the main card that we're still waiting for. We're waiting for Cyril Gane to come through, and we are waiting for Casey Kenney, who's kicking off the main card with Song Yadong. Song Yadong came through a little earlier on. So going back what I was just saying a moment or two ago about heavyweights.
All right, next fighter to the scale is the other man around.
Johnny doesn't want us to talk about heavyweights.
Built set to compete in our main event for the UFC's interim heavyweight title.
Cyril
Gane.
Or maybe you don't want us to talk about heavyweights because we're welcoming in Cyril Gane, who I suppose the conversation will revolve around because it's his style that I want to talk about. This light on your feet, in and out style, bags of power, but so well-rounded and beautiful to watch. Here he is, Cyril. What a rise it has been in the UFC for this man from France.
This is all he's done all week. Look at that big smile on his face.
Yeah, listen, I remember for me to even get to the UFC, I was on the local circuit for 2 years, struggling, getting paid very, very little money because that's how it starts in any kind of sport. When you start at the bottom and you work your way up. When you get to the UFC, things start getting a little easier, but then you still got to work your way up in the UFC. Then you start getting a ranking and all the rest of it. And as you progress, the money goes up, but it takes time. This man has just ripped through it all. I mean, this is his 9th or 10th fight, pardon me. As I say, I was fighting for $1,000. I was fighting for a bag of sand down at Wembley.
The official weight for Cyril Gane, your UFC interim heavyweight championship.
This guy's making a fortune in the UFC for a UFC heavyweight title on the line. Do you know what I mean? No wonder he's got a smile on his face. I was sleeping in my car.
What you find with Cyril Gane now, and similar with Tom Aspinall as well, just to make that connection about this new generation of heavyweights. The reason they've moved so quickly, the reason they're in the UFC, Cyril Gane, what was it, his 5th fight? It was in the UFC. And similar with Aspinall, the plan with Aspinall was to have 4 or 5 fights with Colin Heron at Calborn, take the time, then get onto the UFC's court. But Cage Warriors, who is the biggest promotion over here in Europe, they literally couldn't get him fights. They managed to get him 2. He won them first, both by first round knockouts. Nobody else in Europe was willing to fight Tom Aspinall. And I know the same thing happened with Cyril Gane. So it comes to a point where you've got no choice. You've just got to go to the UFC to keep your competition going. That's because there isn't that strength and depth necessarily in the heavyweight division. But what we found with Cyril Gane is he's got in the UFC, he's had a couple of fights, and then suddenly it's like, oh, what do we do now? He's winning them all. Well, let's throw him in with the former champion, Junior Dos Santos. Then he goes and beats Junior Dos Santos. You've just got to keep him going. And I think that's the issue they're having at the moment with Tom Aspinall. It's like, for all the potential in the world that Tom has got, they want him to have more experience. They're trying to pull him back, but he keeps getting in there, looking absolutely sensational. And obviously the UFC want to pull him up towards the main event spots because at the end of the day, nobody draws a crowd like talented heavyweights. So it's kind of like a catch-22 situation. But I think if Cyril Gane can do it, absolutely, Tom Aspinall's a couple of fights behind him. But no doubt we will see Tom because they are similar guys. The difference we've got here, Cyril Gane, absolutely a natural athlete. Tom Aspinall, a career, lifetime martial artist. People don't even realize this guy's got a jiu-jitsu, a BJJ black belt that he's had since, he's been training since he was a kid.
Just on, obviously there's the physical comparisons, the way that both of them fight, light on the feet, Mike, but you've spent a bit of time speaking to Tom recently. Obviously we've spoken to him as well, and Nick's spoken to Ciryl this week. And the thing that for me just connects them all is how relaxed these big men are. And Tom, he just speaks so well. He's not ahead of himself in this game. He's fully understanding of where his position is right now in the game, which can only hold him in good stead going forward.
Yeah, listen, he's a very humble young man, and that's going to really benefit him as well. That approach that he has, that he's not getting too big for his boots, that he's taking it one fight at a time, is really going to help him. He's not going to disappear, head in the clouds, and think he's the man. As Nick said, lifelong martial artist. The problem for Tom, I was kind of concerned. Last time out, he just beat Andrei Arlovski. Andrei is a former champ. Andre, I would say, is a Hall of Famer one day, when he does actually retire. You beat somebody like that, former champions, all of a sudden you're thrust forward into the limelight a little too much. I think that hasn't happened, and he's kind of lucky because if you speak to Tom, I'm not saying that he's not ready. I'm not saying that he couldn't hang, but if you speak to Tom himself, he'll tell you, listen, I don't want to go in there right now up against guys like Francis Ngannou. And that's not easy for a fighter to say, and certainly somebody that has the stature of a Tom Aspinall, right? We have to be confident people. We have to believe in ourselves, and we have to always put forward in the public, hey, listen, I have ultimate belief in myself. I'm going to be the champion. So to have the humility and the realization to say, oh, hold on a minute. Yeah, I do think that, but I still want a couple of years. I'm still only 28 years old. Most heavyweights come into their prime in their mid to late 30s. Tom is still a baby, 28 years old. He's got his head switched on. He's a smart guy. He's a lifelong martial artist. Yes, he moves very well. He's fast. He's got the speed. He's got the power. He's got the technique, all the rest of it. But he's also got the correct approach. And if he's able to still be able to, progress slowly and build through the rankings at the correct pace, man, I'm telling you, a couple of years' time, I think we'll have a British heavyweight champion.
Getting us excited now, man. Getting us excited. Listen, for those that are joining us, we're just over an hour
from
into
Lancashire.
The live weigh-in show. Yeah, exactly, Lancastrian as well.
Three lads from Lancashire. Let's go.
One of us.
And so's Darren Till. Could you imagine 3 Lancashire lads? I'm not saying anything, but I don't know. Maybe Northwest.
It's in the water.
In the water, yeah.
That's it. Breed them differently up here, pal. Now then, we're just over an hour into the weigh-ins. We've still got an hour remaining. We're allowed an hour, but we've had quite a lot of fighters come through as part of our weigh-in show here for UFC 265. The main event's done and dusted, as is the co-main event. You'll be delighted to know that, just in case you're joining us a little bit late. Only person that we're waiting for from the main card is Casey Kenney. He takes on Song Yadong in the first fight on that main card. We're waiting for Rafael Fiziev as well, who's taking on Bobby Green. That's on the prelims. I think everybody else has come through on the prelims. And Manel Kape as well on the other prelims. So only 3 fighters. That's all we're waiting for right now. But hopefully we can hold your attention whilst we're waiting for those guys to come through. And I just wanted to talk and get your opinion, both of you actually, on the situation with Cody Garbrandt. We've obviously seen we're talking about a weigh-in show and weigh-ins and various things like that. December the 11th is the alluded to date that he will be taking on Kai Kara of France. stepping down in weight. Now, I know he's spoken about this before, stepping down in weight, coming down in weight. Obviously, the former champion up at bantamweight, Cody Garbrandt. But I always get worried, Mike, when the smaller weight classes are talking about going down in weight. I've stood next to Cody. There's absolutely nothing on this lad. We spoke about Jose a little earlier on, didn't we? There's absolutely nothing on him. We've spoke about Michael Chiesa. How did he ever make that 155-pound weight category? We've seen Barboza do it recently, haven't we, going down in weight? There's not a lot of stuff to shift there, if I'm really honest with Cody Garbrandt. I just hope he's doing it a safe way. Do you have any thoughts and worries towards him stepping down in weight, or are you thinking to yourself, maybe this is a good move for him given where he's currently at in the bantamweight standings?
Well, I wouldn't say thoughts, worries. That's not necessarily the right word, but there is concerns. 100% there is. I believe when people cut down to another weight class, they think they have this false sense, this illusion that they're going to be fighting smaller guys and therefore it's going to be easier. Generally, you're not. When I went down from light heavyweight to 205, I remember the first guy I fought, I walked in, I'm like, hold on a minute, I thought I was fighting smaller guys. He's taller than me. What's happening here? I've been lied to. And then on top of that, you can't take a punch as well. It's as simple as that. And we know Cody, when you look at his record, there's a few knockouts on there, pardon me. Now, last fight out against Rob Font, okay, Rob was taller, Rob was longer, and that gave Cody all kinds of problems. So he's thinking, okay, I can make 125, I'll go down there. But is that necessarily the best thing? Listen, you massively dehydrate your body. He already dehydrates himself to get to 135. That's a fact. Now he's going to take off another 10 pounds. You're stripping all that fluid out of your body, and more importantly, you're taking it from around your brain. And that's why you can't take a punch as well, because then when you get cracked, the fluid isn't there to protect the brain. The brain hits the inside of the skull, boom, temporary blackout, you fall on the floor, you go unconscious, right? So cutting weight, done safely, okay, whatever. I have my opinions. I don't want to crap on the entire sport, but I think we are all cutting way too much weight. I think we need to do away with it. We're trying to get this perceived advantage that doesn't really exist because you're still fighting guys your size. And even if he's not fighting guys that are bigger than him or smaller or whatever, like when I used to cut down to 185, I'm fighting other guys that are doing the same thing. We're all doing the same thing. How about we go up to 205? We all fight there. This is the madness thing when it comes to weight cutting. For 8 weeks, for 2 months, we wrap ourselves in cotton wool. We eat the finest diet. We're low on carbs. We do this. We're getting a masseuse. We're running in the morning. We're getting early nights. We're taking all the supplements. We're doing everything we can to be a well-oiled fighting machine. And then the day before, we almost kill ourselves. And that is literally what we do. We almost kill ourselves due to dehydration and starvation. We rid the body of all the nutrients and electrolytes that it needs to perform at its optimum level, and it's absolute madness. So for Cody Garbrandt, going down to 125, I wish him all the best. But I honestly have no idea how it's going to work out for him because it's a risk. Look at one of his former opponents, TJ Dillashaw, went down to 125, gets stopped off Henry Cejudo in pretty quick fashion. So you never know. You go down there, you make that sacrifice, you think it's going to be easier, but be careful what you wish for.
How do we change that mentality, Nick? Because Mike makes a great point regarding the safety of it. You know what I mean? We're the supreme athletes, grafting, keeping themselves in top shape, but then 24 hours, less than 24 hours sometimes, before they step inside an octagon and go to war to take blows, not just to the face, but to the body as well. They're literally replenishing the whole of their body. Something's got to change somewhere, hasn't it, to make it, I don't know, maybe we've got to force it upon them and say, listen, you have a test at the start of the year. This is the weight that you fight at. You can't go lower than that. Is that what we have to do now? Do we have to force it upon the fighters?
Well, but there's two other sports that we can look at here, both boxing and wrestling. College wrestling, talking about, of course, who have regular weight, cutting weight issues. Now, in boxing, of course, once you get into title matches, you have check weigh-ins during the final 30 days before the fight. It depends on the governing body. It depends on the organisation. But they all kind of like 10 days out, 7 days out. You have to go to a registered physician, go to their office. They check your weight. You have to be in with a certain parameter of what your championship or your fight weight will be on fight night. to make sure that you're not cutting too much weight at the last minute. That's how boxing manages it. Now, in college wrestling, what they tend to do is, because they had a lot of issue a few years ago with college wrestling, there was a lot of young kids dying the way they were cutting weight, and it was a real problem. So they brought in a thing called a DEXA scan, where at the start of the season, you will be scanned by a machine. It would test your bone density, your fat, your liquid, everything about your physical body. And then you would be assigned with a minimum weight class. So you can, if it would say your minimum weight this season, for instance, would be lightweight. Now, that's not to say you can't compete at welterweight or middleweight, but you can't compete that season anything lighter than lightweight. And I think right now, with MMA, similar to boxing, we have an annual medical anyway, where you get a brain scan, a blood test, a urine test. It would be very easy to go, right, okay, we are the UFC. We are the flag bearer for the sport, the market leader. We're going to throw in there a DEXA scan as well. It takes minutes, and a lot of physicians' offices have them these days. Throw a DEXA scan in. That will tell us what your minimum weight is for the next season, and you get it done every year.
Is that something that resonates with you, Mike?
Pardon me, Adam?
Is that something that would work? I mean, you've been there, done it, got the T-shirt. Would that work for you?
Yeah, no, Nick laid it out very well there. And one other thing that they do in wrestling as well, it's the dehydration test. Because my son, he's a wrestler, obviously. He's actually out in England right now. He was actually getting bullied off Tom Aspinall. Whilst said before, Tom's great, all the rest of it. He's a bully. I forgot to mention that. My son is 20 years old. Saying that, he's 20 years old. He's not a kid anymore. But they had a good little wrestle off and said Tom was beating him up. Anyway, side note. He has to take a hydration test as well on the day to make sure that they, as Nick just said, they haven't done these massive weight cuts. I'd like to see it all implemented. I really would. I think it benefits the sport. We'll see better performances. We'll see people with better gas tanks, because when you have a hard weight cut, as it gets into those later rounds, certainly if your main event, rounds 3, 4, 5, and you've cut 20 pounds the day before, it's not easy, I'm telling you. You're going to take a shot better. So therefore, the entire product will be better. It'll be safer for the athletes, and we'll get to see better fights. Ultimately, that's what everyone wants to see. So I think if we do that, it will help. But it's a big but. People always want to cheat. People always want to make an advantage. That's why you got people out there still taking steroids. As long as there's been money or medals or trophies to be earned, people want to cheat. People want to get ahead. Yeah. And it's just inbred into some people's nature, unfortunately, and there'll always be a way around it. So we can bring in all these implement these guidelines and all the rest of it, and bring in rules and regulations. I remember a while ago in the state of California, they were saying you had to have a weight test 2 weeks before, and you had to be within, this was a rule they were going to bring in. I think you had to be in 15% or 10 or 15% over your weight class. That was your maximum limit. Well, that's all right, because all you got to do is cut weight on that day as well. Do you know what I'm saying? And here's another thing, how badly the weight cut affects you. You see what I'm saying? There's always a way around it, but that's why bringing in a hydration test would be good, because they can test your hydration level. Say, hold on a minute, you're abnormally hydrated. You're at the top end of the weight class here. We know you've just cut a few pounds. As I say, most fighters now, this is a new thing. What you do, you go out there, you do your weight cut. Everyone we just saw on the scale, more than likely, they're going to fight tomorrow night at, let's say, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 p.m. Who knows? Later in the fight, later it'll be. When they get out of bed in the morning, they're going to go work out. Right, which sounds crazy, but you have to do that, because you almost killed your body yesterday. You don't want the first time you break a sweat and the first time you start the engine of your car to be in the octagon. So you go out there Saturday morning, you go for a workout, you hit some pads, you get the engine running again. You got to break that system. You got to get out of that slump that you were in the day before. And I learned that later in my career, but that's what we'll see everybody doing tomorrow. And it's not because they want to do a last-minute cardio session. They're not trying to implement some last-minute technique that's going to revolutionize their game plan. No, it's about making sure that my engine works when I step inside the octagon. And again, it's crazy that we have to do that.
It is, man. It is. Listen, let's get on to more positive things. Fights that are coming up. We're getting the rematch between Kamaru Usman and Colby Covington, part 2, heading to Madison Square Garden at the back end of this year. I think you've got to be a brave person, haven't you, at the moment, Nick, to be betting against Kamaru Usman. The year that he's having, he's already stopped Gilbert Burns, he's already stopped Jorge Masvidal in sensational fashion. He's getting better and better and better. To back against him, against the person that he has already beaten, and beaten, in my opinion, quite decisively, I think you've got to be a brave person at the bookies.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, listen, Colby Covington's played a shrewd old game, hasn't he? He refused to fight Rocky Edwards. He's refused to fight everybody else, and he's kind of waited for the dust to settle, and then he's like the last man standing. Come on, then let's do it again. And listen, don't get me wrong, the first fight with Kamaru Usman was a whole lot of fun. We were ringside for that one. It was absolutely brilliant. Two guys having a kickboxing match who aren't necessarily kickboxers, but Usman got the job done. Ultimately, got the finish. And for me, that proved decisive. And for that reason, obviously, he'll start as a massive favourite against Colby Covington. But it's going to be interesting to see Colby back in the limelight, back under that UFC spotlight, back mixing with the media, because he needs a new personality, doesn't he? His character's gone. His Trump supporting, kind of MAGA hat wearing whole Colby thing, well, that's gone now. So what's the new Colby Covington heel going to look like? It's WWE come to the UFC. No idea. Maybe he'll have face paint. Maybe he'll have like shoulder pads or something. I got no idea, but it's going to be fun finding out.
Mate, listen, if you think Colby Covington is going off that MAGA train anytime soon, you're out of your mind. Trust me. All he's got to do is continue with that, and 50% of the United States of America will love him for it. They all still firmly believe the election was rigged, the election was stolen, Donald Trump is the president. So all he's got to do is continue with that. And as I say, 50% of the country, which is, well, there's 330 million, so 165 million people are going to think, that's our guy right there, good old-fashioned American. Yeehaw, let's go. Yippee-ki-yay. They'll love him for it. But who cares whether or not people love him? He's got to win the fight. Will he win the fight against Kamaru Usman? I'm just going to say flat out, no. I don't think he does it. No. Listen, Kamaru is just getting better and better. Sorry I had to nip off there. I had to spend a little penny. We've been going for a while. I wish these guys would get on the scale. I've got a beach to get to. But still, Kamaru has got better and better. We see him. He's knocking people out these days. He used to be, what did he call him? Snoozeman. That's what he called him, because he was kind of a lay and pray guy. He would take people down and control them. That's the Usman of the past. This guy's knocking people out. Ever since he teamed up with Trevor Whitman, he just gets better and better. Look at what he did to Kamaru last time. Look at what he just did to Jorge Masvidal, the beating he put on Gilbert Burns. And Colby gave him a really, really good fight. Out of all of those people, Colby did the best. Yes, he got finished. He got knocked out. But going into that fifth round, I had it kind of even. It was 2-2 going into round 5, and he got dropped. Mark Goddard stepped in when he took a few downward shots. And Colby still protested. You know what I mean? So he still had the fight in him. But since then, I think we're dealing with a different Kamaru Usman. So listen, Colby, I'm looking forward to the fight. I really am, because the first one was sensational. And the second one, I think, will be even better. But I think I've still got Kamaru as the champ when it's all said and done.
And if Kamaru comes through it, and he comes through it in even more impressive fashion than he did the first time round, you've got to say the Fighter of the Year narrative, argument, whatever we want to call it, it's done, isn't it? It's absolutely done. You beat Gilbert Burns stopping him. You beat Jorge Masvidal first time to stop him with strikes in the UFC, and then you go and beat Colby Covington. You're probably your number one contender. It's done. Send him the trophy. Send him the trophy. Let's go get UFC Africa on, man.
If Kamaru Usman doesn't get Fighter of the Year if he beats Colby, it'll be a bigger robbery than me not getting Personality of the Year.
He won't let it go. I love it. He won't let it go.
Oh, dear.
Brilliant.
Gents, we've actually spoken about this on one of our preview shows in the past about potential fights in the light heavyweight division. I don't know if you can see that on the screen there from Commander MMA. Thank you very much for this. Who fights for the light heavyweight belt after Glover Teixeira? Obviously, Teixeira and Blachowicz are going at it. There's loads of nice sharks, I'd say, that are swimming around underneath this particular fight. And I think there's some fantastic matchups to be made in your former division here, Mike, at light heavyweight. One of which, Yuri versus Rakic.
Yep.
For European
mixed next fighter to the scale.
I was excited that might actually get made somewhere in Europe.
What a fight that would be. Lightweight division, Rafael Fiziev.
Let's get this weighed in, because Fiziev's about to weigh in, and we'll come back to that light heavyweight conversation in a minute, because that potentially could be an absolute crack fight. He's just... Well, I'm going to say, Mike, is he on holiday with you, this fella? Has he been down at the pool with you?
Not with that six-pack.
Looks happy anyway.
155.
Hey, it's always a good feeling you walk out there.
Fiziev.
Because obviously he's been cutting weight. That's why he's late to the scale, you know. But he knows he's good. You step on the scale. They say you're all gone. It's like, oh, come on. Now we can rehydrate. Now we can go and eat some food. Going back to the light heavyweight thing, as you said, Adam, you took the words out of my mouth. Rakic and Prohaska, they're the two names I was going to mention. Rakic is doing fantastic things, but for some reason, I don't know why, I'm a little more captivated by Jiří Procházka. Just the personality, the rawness of him is a little unusual. He's a very unusual cat. He's a little strange, but still, both of those guys are on an absolute tear. It's a shame. Are they going to fight each other? Is that announced? Because if they are, it's an amazing fight, but it's a shame because both of them are worthy of a title shot almost, you know what I mean? And they're right there. Unfortunately, if they fight each other, one of them's going to lose. Simple as that. But if they took different fights, then they could be fights for the champion in quick succession. But yeah, they're doing great things. And certainly, in terms of European MMA, certainly putting the eastern part of the continent well on the map.
Listen, it's nothing official as of yet, but a lot of back and forth on social media. So when that normally happens, the UFC normally see that, don't they? And they go, go on then, we'll stick you in the cage together. Just imagine, Nick, sticking that somewhere like Poland, Gdansk, just somewhere in
Prague.
Eastern Europe, because it would go absolutely right off. What a fight that would be.
It'd be absolutely unreal, you know, and as Mike says, they're both future title contenders, absolutely. And it's a shame they would have to go through either one of each other to get next in line after Glover Teixeira. But they are both got so much ability, so much power, incredible to watch. I'll tell you what, let's throw another name in there, shall we? Because he's the unspoken man in this division. He is Braveheart to the end. I am talking about Paul Craig, of course, who's been on an absolute stellar run. And, you know, I was just about to throw Magomed Ankalaev's in there because that guy's going to wear UFC gold at some point in the future. But then I couldn't mention Ankalaev without mentioning Paul Craig because obviously he's the only man to beat Ankalaev. I tell you what, Paul Craig is scheduled to fight Alexander Gustafsson at the moment. There's some rumblings coming out of Sweden, whether that fight's going to happen or not. Obviously, you know, if it is going to happen on September the 4th, it will be moved to Las Vegas along with Till and Brunson. But either way, hopefully Paul Craig gets another fight against one of these top contenders or a big name like Gustafsson before the end of the year. And I tell you what, stranger things have happened. If he gets the opportunity, another big win, again, he's kind of like the Michael Chiesa of this light heavyweight division. They know what Paul Craig's going to do. They all know. And none of them, in a succession now, including legends like Shogun, have been able to stop it. So don't sleep on Beardew just yet.
Hey, but listen, going back to what's his face, Alexander Rakic. I love what he said there. That tweet that you just showed on screen. Jiří Procházka hiding and praying. You know what I mean? Because, you know, there's no bad language. It's not distasteful. But if you're a fighter, and listen, Jiří Procházka he's a martial artist to the end, to the death. He's got that samurai approach to it all. You know, someone's out there on social media that if you can jump in your car and drive and find them 45 minutes away, because they don't live far away from one another. And he's saying to the world that you're hiding and praying. That is the best call out ever. And I think Jiří will answer that. So what a great fight that is. Unbelievable.
Absolutely. Now, gentlemen, we've put this up on social media over the last couple of days. It was our fights to make if we were the UFC matchmaker. People will have seen this. If you haven't, it's available on our YouTube channel. Go and check it out. There is a poll up at this moment where people are casting their vote as to which is the best one. 24 hours after making that video, lads. Obviously, Sean Shelby, Mick Maynard, they've got a direct link into what we're doing here at BT Sport. 24 hours. Oh, Nick, you're right there. What's that? Oh, Nick, I'm looking at the poll there. I'm so sorry, mate. You know what I mean? You've been done there, aren't you, pal? What's that? 5%? 5%? Oh. Anyway, do you want to comment or not? Are you going to leave it?
Well, listen, the producer done me. I told you, the producer done me by saying, what rematch do you want, Nick? Choose a rematch. I was done by the producer because he's going to be winning these things.
I didn't get that message. Did you, Mike? I didn't get a rematch.
Hold on a minute, Adam. Why are you patting yourself on the back? You know,
I know everybody in the world was talking about that fight. Yeah.
Everyone in the world was talking about it. That's why it got announced the next day. Because if you follow the sport, the rumblings of that, so you just jumped on the bandwagon. But still, even though you cheated.
I told you what you wanted. And they went with it. End of the day, who's the real
Even though you cheated, essentially, I still beat you in the poll. So, you know, the court opinion is open.
Hang on a minute.
Wait a minute, you didn't even win. What are you winding me up for? You didn't even win either. Bisping won. Leon versus Masvidal is what the people want to see.
Hang on. Are we all ignoring the results here? Come on.
Hang on. When did I say that I won the poll? Never said I won the poll. I was just commiserating with your 5% there. That's all, mate. That's all I was commiserating. At least I give Mike a run for his money. At least I give Mike a run for his money, pal. You know what I mean?
Mate, yeah, but this is the Olympics. You don't get a silver medal. You don't get a silver medal for coming second. You were just the first loser. That's all it is.
Anyway, right? Let's be honest. How good of a fight is Gaethje versus Chandler, Mike? It's a belter, isn't it?
Oh, come on. No, it's awesome. It's awesome. Everyone's looking forward to that one. It's fantastic. It's really going to say where Chandler is. You know, Chandler's made a big impression, knocked out Dan Hooker, had a great fight against Charles Oliveira, didn't go his way. We know, okay? And you got to admire him for taking on this challenge because, you know, it's 3 tough fights in a row with, I would say, even though he just lost against Oliveira, Gage is the toughest of them all. He's the toughest fight he's had in the UFC so far. So coming off a knockout loss in a title fight and then fighting against Justin Gaethje, when he's only just signed with the UFC, there's always, you know, anytime somebody comes over from another organization, the narrative always is, can he compete? Is he good enough? Now he's stepping up onto the big boy scene. You know, all right, did well against Hooker, lost against Oliveira. Now, there's a real danger here that he loses this fight, and he could lose it in spectacular fashion. The most violent man in the UFC is what Justin Gaethje is known as, also known as a human highlight reel, because he is, right? The man's lived by the sword, died by the sword. Beautiful boxing, just gets better and better. Great wrestling that he never uses, which blows my absolute mind. You know what I mean? Maybe shoot a takedown sometimes, but he won't do it. That's why people love him. But the man's got firepower in his hands, you know. And for for Chandler coming into this one, yeah, it's a high pressure situation because it'll be quite the fall from grace to get a knockout, a title shot, lose that, get knocked out, then get knocked out against Gaethje. Well, then maybe it proves that narrative correct. Maybe that he wasn't at that level and he just had a fluky win over Dan Hooker. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. I thought the win against Dan Hooker was perfect. I thought he set him up for that shot fantastically. It wasn't a fluky shot. He set that up. It was great. And Oliveira was awesome. But still, you've got to win fights. And this is a tough fight. So I respect Michael Chandler for what he's doing here.
And Nick, he's taking off a little bit of a peed off Justin Gaethje as well. You know what I mean? Yes, okay, last time out, he did get beat off Habib. But there's been loads of talk in this division about who's next, who's this, who's that, what fight we're making here, there, and everywhere. And Justin Gaethje seems to have been sidelined just a touch, you know? And with all due respect between fans are looking at Justin Gaethje as one of the big boys. He's one of the main contenders in this division. Now he's got an opportunity to put on a little bit of a show. He's been, you know, maybe, I don't want to say disrespected, but he personally might feel that. So he's going to come in here absolutely all guns blazing, knowing full well that a victory here, he can get on the microphone, rock it and say, right, the winner of Dustin versus Oliveira, let's go.
Yeah, and listen, he's got to do that. Listen, he should feel annoyed that he's been pushed out of the title picture. You know, Conor came riding back into town and everything else, and suddenly the number one contender who just lost to Habib is suddenly completely forgotten about. And let's go back to the build-up to the Habib fight when we were saying, you know what, he's done a number on Tony Ferguson. Gaethje could be the guy. Gaethje could be the kryptonite. He's got the wrestling, he's got the aggression, he's got the relentlessness, he's got the power. And, you know, Habib was just absolutely outstanding that night, retires in the ring. And it was kind of Gaethje almost got retired in the ring as well, because suddenly he was out of everyone's consciousness. I didn't even put him into my quasi-lightweight tournaments. That's how badly he'd fallen from grace. But this is a wonderful opportunity for him to jump right back in again. Listen, it's a great fight for Chandler as well, because you lose to Justin Gaethje, guess what? Michael Chandler's still in the top 5. There's a difference between losing to Justin Gaethje and losing to a Diego Ferreira or a Kevin Lee or a Gregor Gillespie. Because guess what, Michael Chandler? They're the names coming next if you don't get a win over Gaethje. So there is a lot of pressure going into this fight, but also Chandler's come in. And listen, Chandler kind of blew us away when we first come into the UFC. We knew he was a star outside of the UFC. A lot of talk about his legacy in terms of this division anyway. But he comes in and he behaves like a champion, a true professional, incredible with the media, just kind of rolled straight in. And straight away you kind of thought, wow, that guy's a champion. That guy knows how to wear the belt, knows how to represent himself, the sport, the promotion. Wow, no wonder. And that's part of the reason why he's getting these incredible opportunities against top-level guys, because he is one of the best in the world.
Next
But
fighter
again,
to the scale,
lose to Gaethje.
kicking off the pay-per-view main card.
The amount of hungry lightweights coming beneath you, terrifying to think what comes next. But either man.
Well timed, Nicholas, because Casey Kenney's about to hit the scales. Casey Kenney, part of that fight with Song Yudong, which kicks off the main card on BT Sport, 3 a.m. in the morning for UFC 265. Should be. It's got a potential to be an absolute cracker. Both these guys coming off losses, big ramifications for both of them. I know that obviously we touched upon a little earlier on, didn't we? The type of losses that both of these guys are coming off. One against Kyler Phillips, one against a split decision against Dominic Cruz. Obviously very, very different types of fights to lose, but nevertheless, they are coming off losses. Two hotly talked about prospects in this bantamweight division, and a lot of people excited about this knock as well. Song Yudong came through earlier on the scales on the money. Let's see what Casey Kenney's
136 pounds, the official weight for Casey Kenney.
He's done it.
Needed to get down to his kicks, Mike.
Yeah, and listen, I've said this before, but, just because they come in near the end of the allotted time doesn't mean necessarily they had a bad wake-up. They may have planned for that. I used to. You got 2 hours, However you want to do it. If you want to be the first in to have longer to hydrate, perfect. Good for you, and that's probably the smarter approach. More time to absorb nutrients, etc. But maybe, who knows? Maybe he did his first half of the wake up very late last night, so therefore wants to lie in a little bit more and get some more sleep. So as I say, there's lots of different ways to approach this, the scheduling of it. So it doesn't mean that he's had a bad wake up. Hit the money. Hit it nail on the head on the money. Fights on. It's going to be a good one.
For those that are just joining us, we have got scheduled around about half an hour remaining of the allotted weigh-in time in Houston for UFC 265. Everybody's come through on the main card. Your main event, your core main event, all done and dusted. They're in the books. Everybody's come through on the prelims. The only fighter that we're currently waiting for is the former Rising champ, Mano Camp, who's taking on Ode Osborne, who's making his debut at flyweight. Ode, by the way, came through in the first 10 minutes. He made weight bang on. We're still waiting for Mano Cap. So by my reckoning, he's the only fighter that we're waiting for on the early prelims. A little bit of housekeeping for you, because you're obviously going to want to watch these fights. It's not just about the weigh-ins. You want to watch people throw down. Toyota Center in Houston, the destination, and we are live from 1 a.m. with the prelims. So make sure you come and join us for that. The Karolina Kowalkiewicz fight gets us underway there. And then, as we've just been talking about, Song Yudong versus Casey Kenney will be the fight that kicks us off on the main card from 3 a.m. all on BT Sport. So make sure you come and join us for that. We've had loads of content coming your way as well via our YouTube channel. So if you, after the back of this, after enjoying stories about Michael Bisping sunbathing and drinking tequila for the last 5 days, you're more than welcome to head to our YouTube channel and watch Nick Peet doing the majority of the work for both of us actually this week. He's been interviewing all the fighters. Me and Mike have just had a feet up on Sunline. Just top work, Nick. Well done, son. Thanks for interviewing everybody for us. It's been great stuff. That's all available on social media. And of course, we will be back with a review show for you on Sunday after the event. Now then, boys, let's have a quick look. Oh, that's a good question. Like this indeed, because this is a fight, obviously, that is coming up in the not too distant future between a returning fans' favourite, a hero of many people that follow UFC, Nick Diaz, back in the octagon, taking on Robbie Lawler. What's this, about 25 years on since their first meeting? The rematch is on. And the question there is, how do you think it's going to go down? I've got to be honest, boys. Mike, I'll come to you first. I've no idea, because I don't know where Nick Diaz is at. He's been running triathlons for the last 5-6 years. I've no idea where he's at as a mixed martial artist, so I can't make a prediction of the fight.
Exactly. And I don't think anybody can, because whilst he's also been running triathletes, as you mentioned, he's also been doing a lot of partying. You know what I mean? I follow him on social media, and he was hanging out in some penthouse suites in Las Vegas with a bunch of pretty young ladies and having a whale of a time by the looks of it. Okay, so yes, he's been running, he's biking, and all the rest of it. The most important thing is he's been staying in shape, because the fighting ability is always there. Right, he's a lifelong fighter, probably fighting as a kid on the streets, then became a professional. But him and his brother, when you take on a Diaz brother, you know the type of thing you're going to get. And what he's got, that thing that you get never goes away. That's always there. That attitude, that warrior spirit, for one of a cheesy quote to sum it up. That's what I'm talking about. They will fight anyone, anywhere, anytime. I hate saying it, but it's true. It truly applies to these guys. And he's got the skill, right? The skill doesn't go away. Maybe you got to refine it, but it is to a certain degree like riding a bike. It's always there. You might get a little bit rusty. You get the WD-40 out. You give a little spray, get the hose pipe on it. Boom, we're back in the races and off we pop. And that's what you're dealing there with Nick Diaz. Of course, everything we're saying there applies to Robbie Lawler. But what's he been doing for a while? He's been out for a bit. He's had a fall from grace. He had a championship run, became the champ, and then, had some hit and miss results along the way as well. Listen, it's a throwback fight. It's a classic fight. 17 years in the making. Everyone's excited to see Nick Diaz back. But what are we going to get? What version? I don't know. Are we going to get a guy that's going to go out and wipe the floor with Robbie Lawler and then become the champ and call everyone out? I don't know. I have no idea, but I'm fascinated to find out.
I think everybody's in the same boat, aren't we, Nick? I'm kind of down for these retro fights now. Yeah, give us a title fight. Yeah, give us hot contenders fights, but give us a retro fight as well on these cards. Maybe that's a new thing for the UFC. Give us something from yesteryear, run it back. Beautiful.
It's going to be, listen, at the moment, I try not to get too carried away when Nick Diaz announces a comeback or there's talk of a comeback, because so many times I've written these headlines and they've come back to bite me because he's disappeared in a haze of smoke, quite literally, and hasn't actually made the comeback happen. So I'll believe it when I see it. That's all I'm going to say about that. I'll believe it when I see it. And when I do see it, if he does make the walk, I will be absolutely ecstatic. Because, listen, the last time we seen him was on my birthday. I think it was 5 or 6 years ago against Anderson Silva when he was lying on the floor against one of the greatest of all time. We all remember it. It was absolutely iconic. I just want to get that fun Nick Diaz back inside the octagon, throwing down, because, listen, man, if you've followed the sport for more than 5 minutes, you know what the Diaz brothers have brought to this sport. The whole scrap pack, absolutely incredible. So, of course, Legends matches, sign me up. Why not?
Yeah, absolutely. Azim, thank you very much for your question. On Twitter, mate, he's talking about featherweights. Volkanovski against Ortega at UFC 266. A good fight. We're all excited about that. I think all of us have got Max Holloway in there as well as maybe next in line. That's no disrespect to anybody else at 145. But, Mike, where do you see our very own Arnold Allen going here? Because he's just been bubbling along nicely. He's got himself up the rankings. He's in that top 10 now, ticking away. How far can this guy go?
Well, he's certainly championship quality. That's a fact. He's got the skill base. He's there. He's very well-rounded. He can fight everywhere. He's a great athlete. He's fast. He's explosive. He's strong. He's young. He's switched on. He's a hard worker. And he's on hell of a win streak. I think it's 7 in a row, if I'm not mistaken. And just answer me this. Is he scheduled to fight on September 4th? Was he going to be on the London card? Do we know?
I haven't seen anything nailed in. For him.
Okay. I would have thought so, but the point I was going to say, even if he is or even if he isn't, he needs a big name on American soil. I know he had a couple of fights ago. It was his debut in America, and I hate to say America and sound, but that's the center of the sport, and that's where the fan base is, and that's where the majority of the buying public are for the pay-per-views. So when you drive that market, that audience, when you move the needle over there, you're going to get bigger fights, you're going to get bigger opportunities, and that's the business side of the sport, and that's just the reality of a lot of sports.
Who would you match him with? Who would you match him
Pardon
with?
me?
Who would give him that clout? Who would be the matchup that you would make?
Yeah, I'm not sure off the top of my head without looking at the rankings, but the point I was going to make is that he was in a similar kind of situation as our very own Leon Edwards. Leon Edwards needed that big name, which he got with Nate Diaz, but then there's that weird controversy. Let's not get into that. But that's what he needs. He needs that big name over a household name in that weight division, which isn't easy to find. Down at 145, we're not talking Max Holloway. I wouldn't put him in there with Max Holloway because he's like, I don't know what you call him, the secondary champ, the champ in waiting, the always perennial interim champ. I don't know. But Max Holloway's right there, okay? It's like there's the champ and then you got a little bracket and it's Max Holloway there. But he needs that big win, that big name. And once he gets that, then he can fight for the belt. But until he does that, until he takes on a household name, I don't think we'll see it, even though by rights on paper, looking at his win and loss record, he deserves it right now, if I'm honest.
Yeah. It's hard, isn't it? You look at them rankings, Nick, and you're looking at the names and you're thinking, for example, you look at Calvin Kattar, you look at that and you think, would that be the one that would propel him? And I don't know if it would. I really don't.
It's a good name, though.
It's a great name. The names above him, everyone like that. There's only Kattar, Korean Zombie, Yard Rodriguez, Ortega, Holloway, and the champion, of course. They're the only guys ranked above Arnold Allen. And you ask any of them a question, win a match with Arnold Allen, they would say, what does that do for me? Because as Mike's pointed out, he's 17-1. He's got tons of ability. You know, he's kind of run through everybody, but he doesn't bring much to the table. Similar to Leon Edwards, he's not a great talker. He isn't a main eventer. He can't sell pay-per-views. He doesn't put bums on seats. He isn't a big enough name in the US. The big breakthrough moment for me was when he beat Gilbert Melendez. Yes, Gilbert was on his way down the mountain, but he was a name. And that was when right, let's capitalize now, let's build. And straight from then, he went into the Nick Lentz fight. He was supposed to fight Josh Emmett. That fell off. Then he was matched with Jeremy Stephens. That fell off. And suddenly you go, wait a minute, these are names. They're all names that American fans know in this featherweight division that can relate to, that builds his ledger. And then suddenly ends up fighting Yusuf, who's incredibly dangerous, similar to Arnold Allen, on his way up, you know, only one loss on his record. And he gets that win over Yusuf, a great win. But because it hasn't got the Emmett, the Stephens, the Lentz, the Melendez kind of legacy name behind it, that name that American fans can relate to, again, it goes unnoticed. And suddenly Arnold Allen is back in the darkness again, back in the shadows. He needs someone ranked above him. But the guys ranked above him don't need him. That's the problem he's got at the moment.
I've got it. It's Dan Ige. Dan Ige. Obviously, he just lost to the Korean Zombie, okay? But he's a guy that has championship aspirations. He's there. He's well known. I think he's had a couple of main events now. He's had several co-main events on fight nights as well. And he took that loss pretty badly afterwards, you know, only because he was disappointed in himself and he wants to get back in there ASAP. I think he would take on an Arnold Allen because he wants to rebuild and he wants to put, you know, you're only as good as your last fight, wants to put that behind him. And for Arnold Allen, taking on a Dan Ige and getting a win over someone like that, okay, now we're getting real momentum. Of course, he's already got momentum, but he's getting momentum in terms of public appeal, eyes on him, and in terms of moving the all-important needle.
That said, listen, we were pointing out there, none of the guys above Arnold Allen won Arnold Allen. But Arnold Allen will fight anybody in the top 15. I'm not saying for a second he's only looking up. He'd take a fight with Ige. He'd take a fight with Edson Barbosa. He's already accepted a fight with Josh Emmett before it fell off. He'll fight anybody. Arnold Allen is aware of the fact that he needs these names to get into title contention. But it's just difficult at the moment because he just doesn't bring enough to the table, unfortunately.
We've kind of touched upon, with the build-up to 265, the women's strawweight division. Obviously, we know who the champ is. We had, obviously, her defeat the former champ in Weili Zhang. We've had a question. I don't know whether that's a question. It's just a question mark. Maybe they're responding to us making matchups earlier on this week. Murphy, Bolt? I can't say that out loud, can I? David Murphy. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, David Murphy. Anyway, David Murphy on our social media. Rose versus Zhang 2. It seems an obvious thing to make, but I'm still captivated by Weili and Joanna, their fight, and wanting to remake that particularly not. But I don't know where Joanna's at. Every time I check her Instagram out, she's like me and you, Mike, on a sun lounger enjoying herself. So is she? Where's her head at when it comes to this division? And is she serious about getting back in there and fighting for titles once again?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, when you look at Joanna Jędrzejczyk, she's turned into like a social media influencer these days, and God bless her. It's certainly better than getting your face punched in for a living. But I heard an interview with her recently out here in the States on radio, and yeah, of course, she wants that fight. Apparently, she was asking Dana. So even though on social media, you know, as Darren Till will tell you, as everybody knows, you know, that's the facade you're putting forward because, you know, she's done very well. You know, she's earned a lot of money. She's got the finer things in life, and she wants to show them off, and God bless her. She's got every right to. But I think she's still pushing herself in the gym, and she still wants to be the champion again. So I think Rose versus Zhang 2, yeah, great. I'd love to see it, but I don't think it's the fight to make. Rose, you know, knocked her out with a head kick, you know, put a stamp on it. That's that. Wasn't a close fight. Outclassed her. Simple. I would love to see Zhang versus Jędrzejczyk again. Of course, fight of the year. Everyone loved it. But Rose versus Jędrzejczyk again, I mean, they already fought how many times? Twice already? Yeah. And Rose won both times. Again, decisively. I think Jędrzejczyk needs another win over somebody big. Hold on, who did she beat though recently? Was it Michelle Watterson? She beat her last year. So she's in the win column. I don't know. It's a weird one. It's a very, very weird situation. I think everyone wants to see Jędrzejczyk versus Zhang. Come on, sign me up right now. If it's Rose versus Zhang, great. But Rose is just so damn good. She's running out of contenders as well.
Yeah, I don't think this whole division's like that, isn't it? Yeah, you can't put Rose straight back in with Zhang Weili, not with a first round knockout of the year contender that was still fresh in everybody's minds. We haven't even given her the trophy for knockout of the year yet. We can't just put them straight back together. And Zhang and Joanna, listen, their rematch has got to happen. The fight was incredible. I think there's an obvious contender for Rose, and that's Carla Esparza. Carla Esparza beat Rose in the tough final. Since then, Rose went back, rebuilt, became champ. Carla Esparza now is putting wins back together. She's a standout contender. 100%. That's the rematch to make with Rose. And then Joanna versus Weili. Boom. There we get the next contender for early next year.
Fair enough, man. Here's one for you, boys. Yes or no? Are we actually going to get Islam Makhachev against Rafael dos Anjos, which is slated for 267 in October? I've lost count how many times this has been slated, how many times they've booked it. It feels a little bit Tony Khabib for me, but do you think we're going to see it?
Morning in the UFC's flyweight division, Manel Kape.
Well, thank you to Manel Kape, because while you guys have got all the time in the world, it's breakfast day, and guess what? My breakfast buffet closes in 20 minutes. So I'm like, Manel, I'm starving. Let's go. Thank God he's here. Whoo, baby, start the car. We're going soon.
That's it. Manel Kape, the last man to weigh in. I think he's just asked for the towel. Former rising champ taking on Odi Osbourne, who is moving down in weight, made weight nice and early after about 10 weeks. Job done.
Moving down two weight divisions as opponents, and he made weight.
Yeah.
Manel Kape, though, was a bantam. He was the rising bantamweight champion for a long time, so it is a push for him to get down to flyweight. But come on, man, your opponent was fighting a featherweight last time out.
Yeah, and we're going to get a full
house. Everybody's winning. Nobody's missed weight. Are we going to get a full house?
To be fair, Mike, in my opinion, Manel Kape won against Nicolau in his last fight anyway. He was kind of robbed. That was a bad decision, that one.
Yeah, but still, on paper, it's a loss. Whilst you take a moral victory away from that, and you can say, the court of public perception says that I won. Not in the record books. 20 years from now.
Manel Kape.
20 years from now, people look at that. Ooh, was it? Sorry, I was yapping on there.
They said 129 there. I'm sure he said 129.
Oh,
that's
God.
A miss, yeah?
Yeah.
I'm going to be getting leftover chipolatas and old dried up egg when I get down there at this rate.
Well, I think he's going to take his...
That's a miss.
Yeah.
So what, is he accepting that he's overweight?
Yeah, I think so.
Doesn't look like he's going to get any more off. Obviously, he had to make 126, but didn't make 129. Manel Kape, the only fighter, it seems, to miss weight at UFC 265. That concludes our weigh-in. You're still going to get your buffet, Mike. I'm not going to keep you, pal. We'll get you to the buffet. I know that you want to get there in good time. You know what I mean? That 5-star. Why have you not? I'm surprised you didn't get room service actually delivered during the show, mate. That's like proper 5-star Hall of Fame stuff. Why didn't you do that?
Well, because I'm a professional and someone walking in and says, excuse me, well, I just signed the check. And by the way, English isn't their first language yet. I order coffee in the morning. They stand there and they stare at me. I don't know what they want. I'm there bleary-eyed in my underpants. I'm like, yeah, mate, where do I sign? But I started, I'm like, oh,
maybe seeing a former UFC world champion in his underpants, you know what I mean, just wandering down there. Maybe you should get dressed before you go to the buffet. Maybe that's what you should be doing.
One eyeball. Hey, this is in my bedroom, you idiot, when I'm calling them up at 6 o'clock in the morning for my coffee. Oh, dear. Are we done? Can we go about our business? Is the weigh-in concluded? The buffet is closing, guys. I got to get to that restaurant.
Listen, the weigh-in is concluded. Thank you very much for your time, gentlemen. For everybody else that are just tuned in, you'll be able to go back and rewatch the full stream. We've been here, obviously, for the official weigh-in for UFC 265, which is coming at you from the Toyota Center in Houston, Texas. The good news is that the main event, Derrick Lewis and Cyril Gane, all came through all good. They're in the buffet right now, enjoying themselves. They beat Mike to it. We've got a great co-main event between Jose Aldo and Pedro Munhoz. Michael Chiesa, Vicente Luque is on as well, as is Tisha Torres, Angela Hill, and kicking off that main card from 3 a.m. in the morning, Song Yadong taking on Casey Kenney. Everybody came through on the prelims as well. Don't forget, the prelims gets underway from 1 a.m. on BT Sport. It should be an absolute cracking night of fights. We are going to crown a new interim heavyweight champion and a new number one contender to take on the full champ, Francis Ngannou. Thank you very much for your time. We will catch you on Sunday with a full event review. Mike, see you in the buffet in 2. Nick, enjoy the rain. See you in a bit.